ready?
We're there.
Hey everybody, welcome to Trail Talk. We are so glad you could join us today. I'm Edie, and this is our special guest, George Rhoades. Mr. Rhoades, we are so glad you could be here with us.
Glad to be here.
Well, we are very excited. Mr. Rhoades is a cowboy poet in that he writes the poetry. You're not a performer, so
That's
to speak.
right.
More.
I'm not a performer or an actor. I write it and it's for people to read, and so I'm sort of like a songwriter that doesn't sing.
Oh, okay, that's a great analogy.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
I like that very much.
You know, some songwriters can't sing at all.
That's true. That is true. Exactly. So, having said all that, Mr. Rhoades is the author of 3 books of cowboy poetry. These are the 3 books: Along the Chisholm Trail, After the Chisholm Trail, and Musings from Cowboy Country. This is his most recent. And when was this last one published?
Last year.
Just last year. So this one's very new.
Yes.
Very new. So we're so pleased we have all of these books available here in our gift shop for purchase, and I'll give you more information about that later. So, Mr. Rhoades, how long have you been writing poetry?
Oh, not very long. Well, yeah, no, wait a minute. I have. The first book was published in 2012.
Okay.
And so I wrote that year before that, I'd say 11. So I'd say I've been writing at it for about 9 years.
About 9 years.
But I worked for newspapers for a long time.
Okay.
And I taught journalism for a long time. So I was interested in writing, other kinds of writing, news writing primarily.
Right.
So that's what I did. So whenever I had a chance to try my hand at writing some cowboy poetry, I did, and it sort of clicked, and one thing led to another, and so I came up with these books.
Okay. So, are you a cowboy?
Okay, I was raised on a farm or a ranch, a small ranch over in Cotton County.
Okay.
And we had horses and cows and the whole thing.
Right.
And my granddad was in the cattle business, and my dad was in the cattle business. My granddad, who was born in Missouri right after the end of the Civil War, moved down to Kansas when he was young, near Caldwell, Kansas.
Okay.
And he worked in the loading pens.
Right.
And when at the end of the Chisholm Trail, when the Chisholm Trail terminated at Caldwell at one point.
Right.
And so he had stories about the Chisholm Trail and about the cowboys and about the herds that came up.
Right.
And then my dad was in the cattle business. And then I grew up over there in Cotton County, and then I lived in Fort Worth a long time. So I've been living and associated with the Chisholm Trail
Your whole
all
life.
my life. Yeah.
Your whole life. So that's just been a part of the culture
Yes.
that you were raised
Yes,
in.
yes.
Very interesting. So if anyone has any inspiration for cowboy poetry,
Yeah, well,
I'm going to say it's you.
Okay, yes.
What a great legacy. That is so so interesting. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
That is so how would you like to share a couple of your poems with us? Now, Mr. Rhoades is not a performer,
That's right.
but he is always glad to read his poems for us, and that's what he's going to do
I'll
today.
read until the voice goes. And like I was telling Edie, when you get to be 85, things start going away. And my voice is one of them.
Right, right. Things aren't they're just not as dependable as they used to be.
But one day I was walking over to the Simmons Center, and right on in front of the museum here, a woman came out with a little girl about 3, little pigtails, and I walked past, and this little girl said, as I was walking past, said to me, "My daddy is a cowboy. Are you a cowboy?" And so it kind of took me aback there a little bit. So I thought, well, and all I could say was, well, I'd like to be.
Right.
So I thought about that incident, and I tried to write a poem about it. I hadn't written any cowboy poetry before. So that was the first poem that I wrote was about that.
And what'd you
About
title that
incident.
one?
My Daddy is a Cowboy.
I love that.
Okay, here it is.
Okay. And this is from your first book.
First book.
Okay.
That was the first poem in the first book.
Oh, this is
And
gonna
one
be
thing
good.
led to the next.
Uh-huh.
Okay. My daddy is a cowboy. She was just barely 3, holding to her mother's hand, blue eyes looking up at me at the museum's front door stand. My daddy is a cowboy. Are you a cowboy too? Her tiny voice full of joy, fresh as the morning dew. I sure would like to be, was all that I could say. Her laughter a happy melody as she hurried on her way. She knew that it was good to be a cowboy somehow. I wondered how she understood those distant days even now, back when they crossed the red, pushing hard, pointing them north, a herd of 2,000 head moving on past old Fort Worth, through rain, wind, and hail, and worse all along the way, driving up the Chisholm Trail near where we stand today. Museum, statue, and monument marked those days of long ago, but the real lasting testament that doesn't always show was captured in the glee and the little girl's happy joy as she laughed up at me. My daddy is a cowboy.
Oh, that was fantastic. I love that so much. You talk about our museum.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, right out front.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I don't know who the woman was. I
Right.
never saw her again. I don't know.
Oh, that was just so good. I think
Well, thank you.
I think that might be my favorite one. My very favorite. And of course, that's the first one I've heard.
Okay. Well, I'll try another one here. Let's
Okay.
see.
Yes.
Okay. There's a TV program in Texas called the Texas Bucket List. Have you seen it?
I have not.
It's places in Texas that go around. It's a Texas Bucket List, and they used this poem. There's a barbed wire museum out near Amarillo,
Okay.
and they had a little segment on there about the barbed wire, and they used my poem in the episode or parts of
Right.
it. And so this is it. Wire, wire. They rolled him out into the sun by the wall at the nursing home. His mind wandered and he babbled about old days being free to roam, brush and grasslands down south, or rolling hills and plains north to the Kansas cowtowns through heat, hail, and blinding rains. The nurses listened to his stories when he rambled about the Longhorn and the big drives up the Chisholm, vanished times to lament and mourn. He made the long trail for 20 years before the town spread like fire, before settlers, plows, and farms, before the coming of the wire. He recalled big roundups from San Angelo to Waco, from the Brazos to the Frio. With memories dim and fading, he talked of driving them north, 3,000 head, a winding herd, on the move past old Fort Worth. They smiled at his fumbled words when he told of crossing rivers, streams, open country for 1,000 miles. Was it yesterday or just in his dreams? From the Rio Grande up to Abilene, across the Red to old Duncan's store, stampedes, storms, dust, and wind, Monument Hill, hardships by the score. He was almost 100, they said, listening to his tales of the Washita, Dover Station, Rush Creek, Silver City, Cimarron Quicksand, and Ragin, Arkansas. But the worst of the problems that brought an end to the trail by far, the greatest tragedy, he sadly cried, was no doubt the coming of the wire. Caldwell, Hayes, Dodge City too. He tried to make them understand that he'd taken part in a great enterprise, important, exciting, majestic, and grand. Millions of cattle pushed up the trail, adventure more than you could desire, creating legends and myths galore before the coming of the wire.
My goodness. That one makes me a little bit sad.
Now they use that on that bucket list.
That is just, it's historical. That poem has a lot of historical value
Yes, it does.
to it.
Yes, oh yeah.
And
It certainly does.
tells such a perfect
And
story.
before the wire, it was open country. They could go anywhere. The herds went everywhere. They just,
True.
After the wire, it was like dark and light. Then things changed. with the
Everything
wire.
changed.
Because they started fencing it off. Farmers started fencing, and ranchers started fencing, and there wasn't open country for those trails anymore.
It was the beginning of the end.
It was the end.
It was. My goodness, that was a beautiful story in that poem.
Okay, let me try another one.
Okay.
Let's see here. Okay, now this one was read by Barry Corbin. You know him? He's an actor. He's been in a lot of movies and TV. Barry Corbin, and he read this at a program down in Fort Worth. He's got the accent. He's an act. I mean, I can't read it like he did. But anyway, here it is. Willie Sid, the fastest gun. You've heard of Billy the Kid, Sam Bass, Frank and Jesse James, but have you heard of Willie Sid, the fastest gun on the plains? Willie Sid was so fast with a gun, he'd beat himself to the draw, in the mirror just for fun, while onlookers gasped in awe. Rapid like lightning from the sky, faster than a cat could blink, quicker than an eagle's eye, swifter than a rattler's blink. Willie Sid's gun was fast, you see, all the cowboys around Pecos said. So you wonder how it came to be that Willie Sid ended up dead. He had killed 9 men and maybe more. His fame as the fastest gun around was becoming part of Western lore when a stranger drifted into town. The stranger said he'd heard of Willie Sid and right away issued a warning. He was a gunslinger, that's what he did, and Willie Sid better be gone by morning. Willie Sid sneered that he'd add a notch to his gun before the day was lost. But in a deadly game, you'd better watch that I's are dotted and T's are crossed. All the bystanders readily agree Willie Sid was the fastest gun that day. His draw so fast was hard to see. After he stopped to make his play, Willie Sid and the stranger strode to meet. Face to face under the hot Texas sun, Willie Sid lay dead in the Pecos street. He forgot to put bullets in his gun.
Now, is that a true story?
No. Some of these are strictly fiction, poetic license.
Right.
It's total fiction.
You dropped some names in there, so I was curious if that was a Texas cowboy
Some
story.
are based on actual incidents or modified incidents, and some are based on things that I read about, and then some are just made up.
Made up.
Total fiction.
That one's a good one. I enjoyed that.
And I'll do another one here
Okay.
in this same book. Let me find it.
I think it's really nice that your poems are a little short. I've
Yes.
heard some that go on for several minutes, and I like that yours are short. It's something you could just sit down and read a couple, in just a few minutes and just have a little enjoyment.
And after this book was published, it won some awards, and one of them was the Benjamin Franklin Award, which was a ceremony in New York City, down in Times Square at the Marriott Marquis, this big ballroom, because there were a lot of different categories. Mine was a poetry category. It wasn't cowboy poetry. It was poetry.
Just poetry.
With a lot of the modern poetry. There was 4 or 5 books nominated, and mine was one of them, with some modern poetry that is very difficult to understand. Most of it didn't rhyme, and you had to have a lot of reference books to figure out, or try to figure out what it was about.
Right.
But
Right.
we went, because we wanted to go to New York. We went to the big ballroom, and they called the poetry category, and I thought, well, I'm not going to win anything. I won first place.
Wow. What an exciting
I
night.
almost fell over.
I
I
bet
was
you
totally
did.
shocked.
That is so great. So, what was your prize?
Trophy.
A big
Trophies.
Trophies.
Just trophies.
Well, that's
No money.
well,
Trophies.
no money.
There's no money in the poetry awards.
Trophies are still fun.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yes, read another one,
This
please.
one's called Section 23. Section 23. The pioneer received the land in the lottery of August 1901, brought his young wife down in a wagon under the summer sun, fenced and plowed up the sod, built a house, barn, and wearily fought the bugs, drought, and heat, barely made a living on Section 23, raised crops and lots of kids, back-breaking work filled the day, cows, pigs, chickens too, trying anything that might pay. Life was tough and hard scrabble. The same was true and even more across the rutted, dusty road for the neighbors in Section 24. But in 24, one fine day, a drilling rig, derrick, machines, cables, and crew began to bore into the earth, digging down like a giant corkscrew. The pioneer was younger then, rode his horse over to see what progress was being made, hoping maybe they'd drill in 23. Maybe you can guess the rest. In 23, they hit flowing, roaring gushers in several different places. Pump jacks now group in clusters. The dirt poor settlers of 24 moved to town, bought a mansion. Offspring became bank directors, partners in wealth expansion, trust funds and Cadillacs, first-class travel and hotel, rubbing elbows with the rich, living large and living well. While across the way in 23, efforts were made in 31, 35, and 42, turned out to be dry holes, nothing when they were through. Call it fate, luck, or whatever. Black gold flowed in one spot, while across the road, working hard was what they got. The children from that far grew up, prospered to a degree, but I think the story's a sad one. My grandpa owned Section 23.
That's true story.
Fortunately true.
True story.
True.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
And that is exactly the way it goes, isn't it?
That's the way.
That's
and
the way
that's
it
the
goes.
way it went.
Uh-huh. My goodness. What a great book. I'm enjoying this so much, Mr. Rhoades.
Now let me try one. Let's see. We're
Let me
running out
give
of
you
time.
Oh no, we can go. We're good. We don't have to end at a certain time. Let me ask you a question though.
Okay.
Do you ever think I wish I would have started writing earlier?
Yes.
Do you really?
After I won some awards and they sold some, I thought, well, why didn't I do this years ago when I was doing all that news story writing?
Right. Did you ever win awards as a journalist?
Nothing major.
Nothing major. Well, no major
Nothing
awards.
big. Nothing big, no.
Well, I can absolutely say that it's a good thing you decided to start writing poetry.
Well,
I think we would have all missed out on some wonderful cowboy poems otherwise.
let's see. Let me try one from this book.
Okay.
Let me try this one. 45. Now, one year when I was in the 5th grade, which has been a long time ago, we moved down to Kermit, Texas,
Okay.
which is west of Odessa. Do you know
Okay,
west
right.
of Odessa?
Out there ways.
And between Odessa and Kermit,
Uh-huh.
there's a little place, wide place on the road called No Trees. And there are no trees in No Trees, Texas. In fact, there are no trees except mesquite bushes around
Right.
there. So no trees.
Okay, no
Yeah.
trees. That was a clever name for that.
Then
town.
they had they had a little school, and they had a little store, and they had some trailer houses, and there was lots of oil wells around there, lots of them. Anyway, okay, I wrote this. No trees bull rider. He said he was the best there'd ever been at riding them bulls, if you please. And then he hailed from far west Texas, from a place they called No Trees. He'd won buckles at the rodeos in Ector and counties all around, beyond the Pecos and Monahans, Kermit, Andrews, and Odessa town. I don't care how high they kick or how much they spin, because there's no doubt I'm the best that there's ever been. In Fort Worth, they signed him up, and he drew a bull called Hell Nado, an angry ton of muscle and horn, one part hell, one part tornado. Hell Nado was kept from the other bulls because he just wanted to fight and tear down fences and trailers and loading chutes just for spite. He'd never been ridden 8 seconds. Cowboy and 200 cowboys had tried. He'd left them sprawled in the dust, broken bones and wounded pride. That's the one for me, No Trees said, because I'm the best there's ever been. That's what he told the Texas crowd over and over again and again. The cowboys hanging at the corral said, we've heard big talk before. After all, this is Texas, don't you know? So we want to see how you score. Bull rope pulled tight, expression grim. No Trees was all ready to go. Settled down on Hell Nado's back. Grip firm, one hand up, hat pulled low. No Trees gave a nod, and out of the gate, kicking high, spinning left and right, Hell Nado exploded with all the fury of a ton of fierce, raging dynamite. Now you can probably guess the rest. When No Trees finally got rid of the cast and went back out to the arena, he allowed maybe he'd been outclassed. But all I can say is this, No Trees said, hobbling, barely at ease. I'm still the best there's ever been, the best there's ever been from No Trees.
That one's good. That one is so, I could see that bull ride happening while you were reading that. You perfectly described all the things at a rodeo.
Fiction, except there is a place called No Trees.
Right.
And, there's not much there now, but there wasn't much there then.
If you want to take a drink, I'm going to share something with the viewers for just a minute.
All right.
So, both of these did this one win one of the Will Rogers medallions?
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
Yes.
So.
Yes, it won. That's the one that won the Benjamin Franklin Award.
Okay.
It's won the Will Rogers Award, and it's won some other awards. So it was a finalist in several.
Okay. And the second book here, After the Chisholm Trail,
It
also
won a Will Rogers Award.
Rogers medallion, and this looks like a Reviewer's Choice Award
Yes, Reviewer's Choice,
as well.
yeah.
This was in 2016, and congratulations, because
This is nominated for the Will Rogers again.
Yes, so the third
So I
book has
could
been
win three.
nominated.
If it wins, it would be 3.
A three-peat.
Three-peat.
And so this, and the category looks like cowboy poetry.
Yes, cowboy poetry.
Written.
because they got some audio.
Oh,
One
okay.
category of audio.
Oh, interesting.
And there's a bunch of other categories of fiction and nonfiction and so on, short stories and so
But
on.
again, it goes back to like the songwriter. You're the writer,
Yes,
not the
yes,
performer.
yes, that's right.
And so
That's
it's
right.
the written category. Okay,
Right,
that
that's
makes
right,
sense.
that's
And
right.
so the winner will be announced October 24th. Is that right?
I think 28.
Oh, the 28th?
I
Okay.
believe.
Okay, so in late October, it will be announced.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, and I'm supposing there's usually a big awards banquet
Yes,
and all of
yes.
that.
But
And
with the
this year-
virus, I don't know, they've been canceling things. And they usually held this in Fort Worth in connection with the Red Steagall Festival. And he's a cowboy singer.
Yes,
and,
yes.
and pretty well known in Texas. And it was a big festival. And so they had this ceremony while that festival was going on. Now they have canceled that festival, but they haven't canceled this ceremony yet. yet.
Maybe.
Maybe.
If I'm not mistaken, Red Steagall does the narration
He does.
on our movie.
He does. That's right.
Little
Yes.
trivia for you guys out there. Yeah. All right. Read another one. I am having
Okay.
such a good time.
Okay. Let's try one from this book here.
Oh, the new book. Okay.
The new book.
Very
the
good.
new book. And this one is, of course, it's a poetic license. It's based on some characters I know, and maybe even a little bit on myself.
Oh, okay.
And it's called Dairy Queen Cowboy.
I was flipping through that book and saw that title a while ago and thought that might be a good one.
Dairy Queen Cowboy. He drives a Ford Ranger. Ropes, wires, water bag, canteen. Old metal posts in the bed when he parks at Dairy Queen. He orders up a root beer, sits and drinks it solemnly. He's decked out head to toe, sharp and cowboy as can be. Nakona boots, brown and white, swirls stitched on the side. Roper's heel and square-toed, made from tough rawhide. Cowboy straw curled up, broad brim and high crown. Beaded black and red hatband, ivory colored, all pulled down. Wrangler bootcut jeans, bought from J.C. Penney, sharp crease, firm fitting, for wearing free and easy. Engraved wide leather belt, buckle a silvery lone star, flashy, bright and shining, looking big as a boxcar. Light blue western shirt, embroidered rose whirl, long sleeves, tail tucked in, ruby red snaps of pearl. He saddles a table in the back, talks about Cheyenne and Denver, Calgary and Amarillo too, but he ain't been there ever. Boots are clean like new, jeans without a cowlot stain, hat unsoiled by grime and sweat, shirt crisp, showing no strain. The girls at the Dairy Queen say he's a really cute cowboy in his bright, colorful garb, like old photos of Gene and Roy. The only thing he rounds up is in the parking lot at Walmart, where he carefully rides herd on any stray shopping cart. And at his second job, he sells cigarettes and gasoline, then follows the winding trail across town to Dairy Queen.
So, are you the shopping cart wrangler,
I've seen
or
some like this. I've known some
guys?
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've heard them called maybe drugstore cowboys
Drugstore
before.
cowboys, yes.
Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah. And
You got one more for
let
us?
me do one more. Let's see here. Let's do. Wait a minute. I'm looking. Okay, let's do this.
Before you start that, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Which book was your favorite?
Well, I think the first one, but maybe the last one.
Maybe
is
the last
it's
one.
getting to be my favorite.
Which, I'm going to just tell you guys, he told me earlier that this might very well be
This could be.
the last George Rhoades poetry book.
Yeah. I feel like I'm running out of steam.
Well, I don't know. I bet you've got some more imagination in there that you could. Although,
I might have some individual poems that I might send someplace, but doing another book might be more effort.
maybe have some of your poems published in another book, like a anthology kind of thing. Is that?
Maybe, yeah. I've had some. I've had some
you've
in
had that before.
anthologies. Yes.
Okay.
And I've had some published online. And there was a website called Cowboy Poetry, and I've had several on there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So maybe maybe this isn't the very last
they
George
could be
Rhoades.
on someplace else.
Okay, that I can live with that.
Let me try. Let me try. Oops. Let me try this one.
Okay.
And this one was in a recent issue of Oklahoma Today magazine.
Okay.
You know the Oklahoma Today
Yes.
magazine.
I think my dad has every
Okay,
single
well,
issue for
look at
I don't know how long.
Look at next to the last one.
Okay.
Okay, this was in there. 157. Let's see here. Wallows.
Okay.
And we had some wallows on our farm over there in Cotton County. Wallows.
Okay, do you have buffalo over there?
Wallows. Round depressions dot the pasture. Curious signs from a time gone by, where bluestem and native grasses grow, where Indian paint, black-eyed Susan, and blue sage nod in the wind. Prairie land never touched by the plow, where water stands after a rain. The final proof and evidence that countless buffalo once roamed across the grasslands. Shaggy bison, cows, and bulls and calves wallowed out dusty places in the soil, fighting insects or cooling off, or just because it felt good. We'll probably never know. 60 million of the beast once blanketed the plains, they say. Now no great herds are on the move, no bands of hunters following after. The beasts and hunters have gone, leaving only the wallows.
Oh, that one is so great. We do a lot of lessons about bison and Native Americans here, and so that means so much.
Those impressions are all over the countryside, where they haven't plowed it up,
Right.
The pastures hasn't been disturbed.
I try to describe those to the kids, when they're here, and that was really nice.
Let me close out with this one.
Okay, that sounds great.
Let me finish with this one, which has gotten some favorable reaction.
You're getting a favorable reaction on all of them from me.
This is called If Fate Had Been Kinder. If fate had been kinder. If we could have been what we wanted to be, we would have been cowboys riding the sagebrush sea. If fate had been kinder to you and me, we would have been out there on the lone prairie. It would have been roundups, horses and cattle, spurs and hats, taking them north, life in the saddle. If fate had been kinder at shaping our road, we would have been cowboys, living the cowboy code.
That's a perfect one to end on. I'll give you a little applause, Mr. Rhoades. This was so enjoyable.
Thanks.
I believe I'm just going to have one of each one of these for myself. That was just so nice.
Would you've got them in the bookstore?
I know. Go ring them up, Savannah. I thank you for taking the leap and writing poems as a second adventure in life.
Yes.
Yes. We are just all very blessed to have your writings. I think it's wonderful, and I'm not the only one who's obviously noticed this. You have award-winning.
And I was surprised.
Award-winning
shocked
poems
to win those awards.
So,
did
you have any writers in your family?
No, not really. No.
Very interesting.
No.
So, just seeing that little girl that day
Yes.
and her comment to you just somehow gave you the idea.
Triggered that first poem, and then one led on to another idea. And something that I'd read about, or an incident that I knew about, or just making it up,
Right. And so do you keep a little book with ideas?
I have.
You have before?
I have some, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Very nice. Well, I just appreciate you coming on today. And I talked about being able to purchase the books. I want to show everyone, here, again, this is our website and phone number. If you would like to purchase or find out more information about Mr. Rhoades' books, there you go. You can contact us by phone or by going to our website. And we would love to hear from you. And Mr. Rhoades, maybe you can come back and read again for us sometime. Would you do that?
Well, perhaps.
Okay, we'll give you a rest. We'll give you a rest in between. We'll wait until after this book wins.
The voice may be gone.
Maybe gone? Well, I hope not. I hope not. Whenever it's time for us to sign off, we let everybody unmute themselves and we say happy trails together.
Oh, okay.
Okay? But before we sign off, let me just remind you guys, next week We are going to have an animal lesson, and then we're going to have a local artist. Ben Harrington is coming next week with some of his really unique pieces of art to share with us. So
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
so we're going to do that. The computer's talking to me now. Maybe Scott's trying to tell me it's time to cut the talking. So if everyone's unmuted and ready, on 3, we'll say happy trails. 1, 2, 3. Happy trails. Bye.